I would like to show you how to work illusion knitting reversibly. Illusion knitting is sometimes called shadow knitting, and to show you how to work it reversibly, I should probably start with what regular illusion knitting is. And it's based on garter ridge stitch, which is what this swatch is. Garter ridge stitch is 2 rows of stockinette followed by 2 rows of garter stitch. So stockinette, of course, is knit on the right side row and purl on the wrong side row, which when you purl on the wrong side row, that makes knits on the right side. So 2 rows of stockinette gives you 2 rows of knits on the right side of the work. And then garter stitch is knit on the right side row. So that starts off the same way that stockinette did. Both of them are knit on the right side. But in garter, the wrong side row is knit, which makes purls on the right side of the work. So garter gives you a row of knits and a row of purls. So the whole sequence gives you 3 rows of knits and 1 row of purls, and that gives you this ridge. Now the way you get patterns out of this is you offset the ridges, which is what I've done in this swatch. And you see it gives you texture, but it does not give you an illusion. So you have to work it in 2 colors. So I will put this swatch down and bring in the 2 color swatch. This swatch is exactly like the previous swatch, except it's worked in 2 colors. And when viewed from the front, it simply looks like stripes, but when viewed at an angle, the illusion appears. And in this case, the illusion is these broad columns, these wide stripes running vertically. So that is illusion knitting. Now, sadly, normal illusion knitting is not reversible. And of course, you know I had to do something about that. So this swatch is reversible. On one side, I've done a checkerboard illusion. And on the other side, I've done 2 large triangles. So this is reversible. Let me show you how I did that. If you have followed my work with Versalace, or you know anything about ribbles, which are reversible cables, then you might already be guessing that yes, magic always comes with a price. The price is twice as many stitches, so yes, we are in 1x1 ribbing. So I start by doubling all the number of stitches, and that mindless right side row that was knit is now going to be knit 1, purl 1. So it's 1x1 ribbing. And then that wrong side row that produces the pattern, that is going to be a slip stitch double knitting, and it's going to take 2 passes. So I've just worked the black stripe. So I worked 1x1 ribbing, and then I turned and I worked pattern down this side, and then I turned and I worked pattern back up the other side. And so I just finished here with the dark, and now I'm ready for the light. If you are working illusion knitting reversibly, you will want to be on double pointed needles or circular needles, because you will frequently encounter this situation where here is where you just ended, and the other color is not here where you need it. The other color is down here at the other end of the work. So if you have points at both ends, you simply slide to the other end of the needle. So I slide to the other end of the needle, and I work across in 1x1 ribbing. So the first row of every stripe is 1x1 ribbing. And the 1x1 ribbing is kind of important in this fabric because this fabric is alternating 1x1 ribbing with a tubular double knit. And the 1x1 ribbing, therefore, is what's holding both sides of the fabric together. If I worked the whole thing in a tubular double knit, then I would have two separate sides of the fabric. I would basically have a pillowcase. So, I mean, I could do that, but what I wanted was something that behaves as one piece of fabric. So every other row is 1x1 ribbing, and it's the 1x1 ribbing that is holding this fabric together. Okay, so I got to the end of my row, so I did my 1x1 ribbing. So now I turn, and I am going to work in pattern. And on this particular side of the fabric, I am doing vertical stripes. So I want 3 knits, 3 purls, and 3 knits. I'm treating everything as a pair. If I number the stitches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, the odd numbered stitches are the near side of the fabric, and the even numbered stitches are the far side of the fabric. So I am only working the pattern on this side of the fabric. So I said 3 knits, 3 purls, 3 knits. So it's going to be knit, yarn forward, and slip with yarn in front. So knit, and then yarn forward and slip, knit, slip one purlwise with yarn in front. And now I need to do purls, so purl and slip, and you see how the purling is much faster. Purl and slip, purl and slip, and then I need to do 3 knits. So I just work my pattern on the near side of the fabric. I'm only working half the stitches. And I turn the work. And now I do the same thing, but I'm working the pattern on this side of the fabric. And on this side, I'm working a pattern where I'm moving a stripe to the left. So on this side of the fabric, I need 2 purls, 4 knits, and 3 purls. So once again, the first half of the pair is worked, and the second half of the pair is slipped. If I were writing this out in a pattern, that row of 1x1 ribbing, I might label that as row 1, but then the pattern rows I would label as 2A and 2B, because you need to work 2 passes. You need to go down the needle and back up in order to add 1 stitch to every stitch to raise both sides of the fabric. If you only do 1 pass, then one side of the fabric is a row taller than the other side of the fabric. And in this case, I get back to the end, and the dark is waiting for me, so I'm ready to turn and work the dark. A few things to think about when you do this. Look for patterns that have the same number of stitches on the chart if you're doing 2 different patterns. And make sure that they start with the same color. So they should be the same size chart and start either with both starting with dark or both starting with light. Otherwise you're going to have to adjust the chart because you need to start in the same color. The other thing to think about is, in some ways, I think this might actually be easier. In normal illusion knitting, the wrong side row is the pattern row, and you have to remember to knit the purls and purl the knits because you're on the wrong side. But when you're working at reversibly, you're always on the right side of the work, so you just read the chart straight off and you always knit the knits and purl the purls. So even though it takes longer because you have twice as many stitches and you're slipping them, it's slower, but I think it might be easier. And then the last thing I should mention, this fabric is pretty thick, probably good for scarves, would be fabulous for blankets. I think this would make a really amazing baby blanket. Yeah, baby shower for the win. So anyway, there you are. That is how to work illusion knitting reversibly. Happy knitting!